Welcome to PLUSone, the series where each month I look at the free games on PlayStation Plus and tell you if they're worth the download. After all, the games may be free, but your time is valuable. Closing out August's list of free games is Here They Lie, a 2016 horror game with a heavy emphasis on surrealism. Before we get any further, I want to clarify that although the game is listed as a PSVR game, it is fully playable on a regular TV without VR. In fact, most of the footage you'll see today will be exactly that. As a launch title for Sony's VR headset, does Here They Lie hold up after 2 years of advancements? More importantly, is the game worth a couple hours of your time and 8 GB on your hard drive, even if you don't have PSVR? Let's dive right in and find out. In Here They Lie, you play as a man who's returned to his old hometown to try and reconnect with an old lover. When your train arrives though, you find the city doesn't look anything like it used to. Most everybody is dead, some of them burned to a crisp, others murdered in the street by these weird wild human things with deer antlers. Throughout the mostly linear world, you'll find many side paths that you can travel down. While these can add to the mystery of the world, most of them don't, due to some pretty poor voice acting. The man you'll talk to on the phone throughout the game, ostensibly an old friend, has a solid enough performance, but when you find these pictures, you'll be treated to a tripped-out stoner's analysis of the past, present, and future, and our destinies, man. It feels very ham-fisted, so pretty quickly I just gave up listening to these and focused more on the game and the atmosphere itself. Here They Lie plays like many modern horror games, putting you directly in the shoes of a helpless character in first person so that you too feel weak and thus scared. I'm not a huge fan of this style admittedly, but I will say that in VR, Here They Lie got me a few times. The different enemies in each section of the game will make sickening screeches when nearby, keeping you especially on your toes. With headphones on, hearing every noise in surround sound stands your hair up more and more. And credit to the game, when you see those piercing, glowing eyes from the enemies, it's genuinely horrifying. Sadly, a few things immediately declaw these enemies and ruin the horror. First and foremost, as an early PSVR game, Here They Lie is not very well optimized. I've felt motion sickness with exactly 2 VR games, and this is one of them. Even with my air conditioner blasting behind me, I felt my stomach knot up and I was sweating a little bit, even well after the game stopped being scary for the other reasons I'll mention in a moment. After just half an hour, I took the headset off, took a break, and then came back to the flat screen version. This was an immediate improvement too, because in a major rookie mistake, Here They Lie has nothing by way of VR options. Virtual reality is different for everybody and elicits a different physical response, so being limited to exactly one control scheme, being forced to turn the camera in 40-degree blinks, and having the flashlight poorly track on the DualShock's motion controls is just a poor call. Playing it on a TV is the infinitely better experience, especially since you can now control the flashlight just using the right analog stick. However, even in 2D, the spookiness falls apart when you die once or twice. The checkpoints in Here They Lie are way too good, often putting you not 20 feet from where you just died. At that point, there's no incentive not to just sprint through everything, because death doesn't mean enough to keep you avoiding it. That's doubly true because the flashlight runs on scarce batteries, and when you run out, you're just in the dark until you find more. There's no reason to walk slowly when time is of the essence. And lastly, related to death, the enemy AI pathing is very strange. It seems like, for the most part, enemies are either sitting around the corner for a weak jump scare, or they're walking in a random path around a small block of the map. The enemy's hearing seems to be wildly inconsistent, just as their steps are. I've died by an enemy that was standing exactly where I needed to go, only to respawn and have the enemy walking in the opposite direction. I've walked quietly past enemies and been heard, and I've sprinted past them without a problem. Dying to these enemies reveals the game's hand way too early, and seeing the monster takes the horror away. It's a shame because I like some of the intrigue in the main plot. When you do run into humans, they're non-verbal beasts that wear animal masks and seem to be drugged. There's this one bloody creature who seems to become an ally not too long into the game. I dig the world that's been set up here, but there's very little outside of intrigue to make this walking simulator worth walking through. With all that said, is Here They Lie worth downloading and playing? Well, if you have PSVR, by default you should download it and try it even if it's not super great. We've only got a couple hundred VR games to play with, so when you can get one for free, you better make it count. If you don't have PSVR, it depends on what you're looking for, even if the game is better in 2D. If you like shorter, bite-sized horror games in the same vein as the Amnesias and the Outlasts of the world, Here They Lie should be right up your alley, albeit nowhere near those two in quality. It only lasts 2 to 3 hours though, so it could make for a good weekend game if you just want to jump a couple times. Just don't take it too seriously or dig into the plot past the surface level, as it's just not well designed or deep enough for that, no matter how hard the developers tried to make it so. For you trophy hunters out there, the game does not have a platinum, and all but a couple of the game's dozen trophies are obtainable just by playing through the game. Don't go out of your way for the trophies, it's just not worth it. Which PS Plus game in August was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you're a big horror game fan looking for another fix after this and Dead by Daylight, make sure you subscribe and come back next week for my review of a game that I would venture to say is one of the best survival horror games of all time.